It's a strange feeling to show so much of yourself, because it's like everything has to be extremely a personal touch, and it can be that it's a mirror and you mirror yourself, or you're sitting in the sky on a bench and you going a cloud around you. But it's still something I've been doing, which is showing some of my, I don't know, insight, of course, and I want to communicate. So it's of course also a huge emotional impact, also because you have a lot of, not stress, but there's a lot of press, there's a lot of interviews, a lot of people looking at you, and you get extremely focus, left the building, left, touch, you mirror yourself, a huge emotional impact, impact. So many things to say, but anyway, of course, the most important thing is to experience the cycles, to experience the things which is inside, outside, as you see, we go on all the day.
Well, I hope it brings around, drive the buses to the side of the toilets, because 1 hour more.
Death, nothing. Death, death, nothing. Where did that come from? Now he starts to breathe nervously. He's afraid. He can feel the cold sweat running down his back. Just to let you know, I don't feel very well. I'm scared, he tells the Finnish businessman next to him. Okay, the businessman says, thinking, you're thinking what? The plane takes off. Jeppe calls the stewardess, tells her that he's not feeling well, buys a few bottles of water. What is happening to me? Why is it so damn difficult to breathe? Why is the air so thick? Luckily, the trip from Berlin to Copenhagen only takes half an hour. He addresses the businessman again, takes his hand. Can we talk? Okay, the businessman says, while he gently squeezes his hand out of this wet one holding his. What do you do, Jeppe asks. The businessman tells Jeppe about his business. It's something, it helps. Back on the ground, he tries to call his wife Silke. She doesn't pick up. She's putting the kids to bed. Instead, he calls his mom from the taxi. Can we talk? Of course, she says. He tells her what has just happened. Should I go to the hospital? No, breathe with me. Okay, breathe in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 1, 2. Exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Breathe in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 1, 2. Exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They breathe together until he arrives at home. Why did I pick this part? First of all, I picked this part because I think it's very beautiful and very strong. Imagine your boy, if you're a mom or a father, 35-year-old, call you on the phone because he cannot breathe, and you're breathing with your own son, like he was inside your belly. And this is what they're doing here. They're breathing together, bringing him basically back to life. This is also where it becomes spiritual. If we look at spiritual, conceptually wise, Then it comes from the Latin word spirit, that comes from the Greek word pneuma. We don't know how to pronounce these old Greek words because none of them are alive now. But the main point with that old Greek word means it's breathing. So spirituality is basically just breathing. But we're not all spiritual because we're all breathing. But when we become aware of our breathing, then we might start a spiritual journey. There's a mindful teacher, John Kabat-Zinn. He used to say that if you are breathing, then there's more right with you than wrong with you. So in a way, there's this potential that it's not that bad. Because we can also say burnout is basically just something very beautiful that the body is doing. We're living a life that we should not be living, and therefore it burns out. And once it burns out, we might lose our consciousness, we might fall apart. But for some weird reason, the body keeps on breathing. It's still here. Take care of me. Make me breathe better. And this is what Jeppe goes into and start training, practicing, being aware of his breathing. He's away from the art scene for a while, and then gradually comes back, and we can see the impact as well in his art. This whole process that's happening, where Jeppe is integrating different elements in his life, for instance, Buddhist philosophy, yoga, meditation, all of these practices that he was not practicing before, of course, also means that it's a form of life. He's changing his life. This means he's changing the way he thinks, the way he feels, his values in his life, and the process in the book is quite funny in the sense that in the beginning you can see that once Jeppe starts asking these questions about himself, so why are you doing what you're doing, and feeling stress, anxiety, etc., then the response I get from some of the people I speak with is that then Jeppe in some way detected that everyone, we all need to do something about our life, etc. But then after a while you seem to be more grounded and more embedded in your own practice, and then become more inspiring as a role model instead of being the one giving us a diagnosis and questioning whether we are good enough or not good enough. And I think that is a part of the process that often we use ourselves as example, and then we can tend not moralize, but at least be giving good advices maybe where we shouldn't be good advices. At least the feedback we get in the book that's quite funny is that some of them are saying, but you're always talking about we all were stressed just because we were running a bit fast, and maybe they were not stressed, maybe they were, but now you are much more grounded in yourself and your practice, and you can still see it, but you can also see that now people are coming to you. Because once we embed a certain philosophy, then this openness, this willingness to share also becomes attractive to other people. So of course it's quite obvious that in the way that Jeppe is quite generous, he's been sharing his life story here, or part of his life story in this book, and this generosity also inspires other people to be a bit generous. And then some of them comes to him and say, Jeppe, listen, I have this, blah, blah, blah. And I think this is quite interesting that we can see actually by sending out a different kind of energy, then we also receive something. We know that because we're seeing that in posters, etc. But now we also experience it quite concrete. Just by changing the way we live our whole life, then things actually do change. And I think this is again what we could see in your art. In some way it's moving from, I don't know, it can sound a bit perhaps like a cliche, but this like moving from minimalist towards more mindfulness, and by doing that, then I mean that it's becoming more total, it's more whole. Now it's not just funny for a specific purpose, now it's actually grounded with everything, that everything is connected, that we can see in some of the exhibition you're having now, that it affects people when they go in and they play with some of the sitting benches, for instance. You change the color, then it attracts more people, and then other people are coming. Then they go out somewhere in New York, for instance. Whole this city is just one volcano of energy that is transforming around, that he's not really controlling, because no one can control that. But it starts off somewhere by sending out this good energy that is in no way moralizing now, but now it's just to be inspired by. And this, of course, is one thing where art, I think, is one of the few places in modern society where we have this form of refugee, or like a pause. Sometimes we just need to have a refugee. We go into the museum just to breathe, because the whole society is so packed with achievement and performances. We need to do, and then we can just sit on a bench. And by sitting on that bench that's orange and a bit weird in our back, then we get a different sensation, and that affects other people, and then it's escalating. And many of you here, you know his art better than me, or know art better than me. You can probably see again this impact. In some way, I mentioned it here briefly, but I think in some way you can see like a before and after. We might be able to see that in 20 years from now. Then it would be more distinct because now we're still a bit in it. But something is happening, I think, with you and your art, because of course it's part of your life. The body and the mind. I think most of you sitting here, you're listening and you're thinking ahead what you should do afterwards, or you're thinking about Jeppe's work, etc. We're up here. Most of us are up here most of the time. We're not really connected. How many do you actually feel your culo? That's what you're sitting on in the seat. How many does have both your feet grounded on the ground here? How many feels if you're sore in your neck? We don't use our body that much. This is also why you burn out, because of course the body for long has been sending signals to Jeppe, stop, stop, stop. But he was not in contact with the body. He was up here planning the next show, thinking about the last video while they were so stupid, thinking about the next show, etc. We're up here, but we're not in contact with the body. The body is helping us constantly, sending out signals, telling us how we're feeling. This is also why we're not happy constantly, of course not. But there are moments of joy, there are moments of small sadness, disappointments, but we listen to it and use that as a way to navigate in life. Take our own experiences seriously, because it matters. It's our life, and our body is telling us something. So this is also why when you go into a place and say, so where do we go now? Then there's no map, you don't know it up here. Feel it with your body. Bring to a full experience. And I think this is part of the morale in this as well, that it's a process. In big part of the book, Jeppe is doing stretching. Why does he do stretching? Because he's dealing with burnout. He needs to get in contact with his body. He's been up here and now he is in contact, much more contact with his body. And therefore he can also read the signals, and therefore I also think you're not afraid of going back to the same tight schedule of going everywhere, because now he knows how to read it, and he also have tools that can make him more aware and deals with it, etc. So this is, I think, is an important thing that unfortunately most of us are thinking, and when we are thinking, then basically we're not here. Because then we're thinking ahead, we're thinking about now we're going to stop soon so we can get something to drink and go out in the sun if it's still there. Or we are thinking about how we got here, blah, 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 but we're not here. But what you're sitting on is right here, your feet is here, your body is here. You can feel your sweat going down your neck, etc., because the ventilation might not be working. All of that, it's right here, right now. And this was obvious, it's trivial. But in Jeppe's situation, it was important to tattoo that on his arm to make him aware, I'm right here, right now. I'm not somewhere else, even though you are here now talking about your future exhibition. But you're right here. And we're all right here. And if we experience that, then we also have the best tool to avoid a burnout and hopefully experience more moments of happiness. But of course, none of us are going to be happy constantly. That will also be a bit sad, because life also means that there are setbacks. We lose people that we care about. These are not happy.
I have a question. Sorry, I interrupt. About Graham Greene. Because you have mentioned this is really important, because Finn is actually making a reference to another author, Graham Greene. Explain why you did that, why you took him in, because he's explained about as an architect. His novel is about an architect.
I brought him in first of all because he's one of the first ones to write about the concept of burnout, and then the story about this architect in some way resemble your story, that he's been eager to succeed, being the best architect, want to pursue his career, but then at one moment when he's experienced this burnout is that there's no connection with the world, no connection with himself, that he's not capable of loving, everything seems so just indifferent. And therefore he goes out to a leper colony, and there he's with people who are really suffering, but they're suffering in another physical way. His is both mental and physical, as we were talking about before. But I think it's interesting that it's a concept that at least has this for Graham Greene means 50, 60 years of time, and he was the one using it the first time. And it's a fictional concept because in a way it's also fictional in a way. It seems so unconcrete that we actually burn out. Because some people, when they're talking about burnout, then they talk about this as we're dying. And here I think it's important that, for instance, Nietzsche was talking about that life and death is not opposite, because we die a little bit every day. There are moments, once this is over, then this event is dead. Then we move on to something else, then it's only our experience of it. But we also, some of our genes, chromosomes are dying, and then hopefully we're producing something new. So death is part of life. But once we experience it, as Jeppe was doing, then we experience something very concrete when he's sitting there in the plane, that nothing lasts forever, that we are mortal human beings. We know that from when we were, 6, 7 years old, but most of us doesn't experience it in the sense that you can really feel it and not breathe because you're afraid of dying. And this is scary. And I think this was quite touching. So that's why I started with this with your mom, that we basically go back to something so concrete, the connection between mom and son. And it's probably always been strong, but I think today this has also been a boost with that relationship, for instance, due to that. I would like to add one thing that also address here, because I don't know if it's the same point of view, but of course Jeppe is privileged in the sense that once he's suffering from burnout, he has the financial resources to take out basically a year making Stefan and the rest of the studio run his show. He's so well known that he can do that. He has a lovely wife that takes care of the kids, that he can go out and focus on himself. That is very privileged. Of course it is. But what it also deals with, as Jeppe is saying, is not that specific issue that maybe not all of us can do that the same amount, or we don't have the resources or the luck or whatever to do that. But when we get down to the bottom of it, then it basically deals about how do we become worthy of what's happening with us. And this is an ongoing quest for all of us, because there happens different things in our life. We have different setbacks, different wounds, different forms of pain that we are suffering from. But we all in some way need to match and become worthy of that event. And here, some of the tools are becoming worthy of what happened. For Jeppe, it was successful to use Buddhism, find inspiration there, meditation, yoga, therapy, talking with friends. That's one path. There might be many. We're also emphasizing that several times, that this is not a manual. You should not go out and copycat this one and do the exact same thing. No, of course not. But you can be inspired by it. And what is interesting, where you find the inspiration is, then we were talking about basically something that seems so common sense in a way. Because listening to your body, getting a better contact, as I was saying before, between the mind and the body, using your network, but also ask yourself this question you're asking yourself in front of the mirror. So why am I doing what I'm doing? And here the answer was love. But do you feel love because people are streaming into your exhibition and want to buy your work? Maybe, or at least I get recognized, etc. But that's not love. I want to be loved by my closest friends, my wife, my kids. That's the love I need. And this requires that I'm present moment by moment and not thinking ahead in the next exhibition. And that is quite general. But of course, and I also think we acknowledge that in the book, that yes, this is a book dealing with a man suffering in the Western world. There are some privilege being a man in this world. We know that. We know there's not equality between men and women, unfortunately. This is not our agenda with this book, but we know that. I think most people know that. It's also not a racial book in that sense that there are other problems in other parts of the world. It's also obvious. But some of the basic issues, some of the sources in all of these problems are dealing with how do we relate to the world? How is our relationship with the world? Philosophy for me is basically just about a relationship to the world. It's a love affair. And we can relate to the world sarcastic, ironic, humorous, but we can also do it with care, compassion, both self-compassion, but also with the people we're interacting with. And this is one example here. But Jeppe is also going to bring that into other situations. Because he's not just here with you, just like we are not just here together. We might also go out and then we interact with other people where we are not that fortunate or privileged, etc. But if you still have the same approach to life, that's also why I said that it's a form of life. You have changing your set of values, the way you think, etc. But it's a form of life, it's a new approach, it's a new relationship to life. You see things differently, become more aware of yourself and other people. And of course this is going to have an effect regardless of where you are in the world. But it might be more difficult for some to have it because there are problems of starvation, money issue, etc. But we take one step at a time. We also stress ourselves, but then of course you can question whether we stress ourselves because we really want to, or we do it because of the ideals of norms of the society. And here I think that the norms of ideas of society, this performance society, competitive society, achievement-oriented society, that we constantly need to do something, and we cling on to an identity, even though an identity, if I agree with Deleuze when he says it's a prison. We don't want identities because it limits us, it's restricting, but we want a new identity, one that's better, more shiny, and we are competing and measuring ourselves with others. So in that sense, we're also exploiting ourselves to achieve more. So in some way, we can see also from many stress studies that people also stressing themselves because they think about what they should do, what they're still lacking to do, they're measuring themselves, they're benchmarking themselves with other people. But of course also part of society ideals that the ones that we refer to are the biggest. This is why I also think it's very interesting that in a society like this today, then we have rock stars, we have sports stars, and we have artists. These are the big role models of today. Everyone want to be an artist. Look at the business world. They bring in artists, the new managers should be the new artists, etc. But artists are not superhumans. They're just like the rest of us. They also burn out. They're also human beings that need to learn how to breathe, need to take care of themselves, etc. So none of us can live in this society. And of course we all have a responsibility to change the society. But most of us are not decision makers. I'm not. Maybe some of you are more powerful than I am. But then we can try and send out some good vibration that might inspire people and say, yes, there is something rotten in today's society. We cannot live up to these ideals. It's going to stress ourselves. We're going to exploit ourselves. We're going to be narcissists, people that are not able to love. We cannot relate to life in a nice and caring way. But there are someone sending out ways of doing it. Following the path of the Buddhism could be one way. Philosophers, psychiatrists, other people can also be other people that just make their own ways of doing it. And here, of course, it can be interesting. The girl next to you were talking about being privileged, that many people who've been traveling around the world often having this experience that you might go to countries that are very poor, but when you encounter those people, meet them, then they seem happy in a way that we are not. And that's maybe because once we look at ourselves in the mirror, then we don't see who we are, who we are becoming, but we see what we are lacking. We lack because we are getting bored, or our tits are hanging, or whatever it is. But we're lacking something. According to what? According to some ideal. And where did that ideal come from? Produced by society. Ideals, awful. Norms, awful. Trust yourself a little bit. How does it end? Does it ever end? After the exhibition, there's a dinner. After the exhibition, they're in Stockholm. Jeppe and his wife only stays for 1 hour or so. Then they return to the hotel. I'm exhausted. I just wanted to be alone. When we got back to the hotel, I did some yoga. And suddenly, I could feel what I have done. I was able to enjoy my exhibition. Enjoy people's interaction with it. I was there. I remember I called Silke. She came over. I hugged her. And I started to cry. It was so beautiful. I was happy. We just sat there for a while. I told her I'm back. I don't know if we cried or smiled together, but I felt good, stronger, ready. Then I asked in one of these many hours we were hanging out together, stronger. Yes, many people see my burnout and anxiety as a weakness. They don't understand why I'm sharing my feelings, doing all this. I think it's a problem when people see openness as weakness. Actually, I think you need to be strong to show weakness. I'm not proud that I burned out, but I did. I have learned a lot during the last 3 to 4 years. I feel better, stronger, happier. In a way, I'm grateful that it did happen. I still have many years, hopefully, I'm glad it happened when I was 35, not when I was 40. I don't wish that anyone should experience this, but I think many experience something similar. I hope to raise new questions in my art. I think being in balance is much better than suffering from anxiety. At least this is my experience. I'm not finished yet. And what we can see and what people who's been suffering from burnout is that they come back, many of them, not all unluckily, come back in a stronger, new version because now they have the courage to ask, so what really matters in my life? What is important? What is the life that I would like to live? What is my really purpose here in life? And like all stories, then this is a love story. And like most love stories, then they're also a bit of a horror story. This is why we have both the burnout and the happiness. but there is some sort of resolution at the end. But of course, this is not the end. It's a process in the sense that Jeppe is still moving forward, still improving to live our life. This is what we all are doing until one day we die, and then we either reincarnate as Jeppe think is possible. I don't think so, but the main point is that at least we have some time here in life where we can improve and getting better at living, and perhaps living the life that we would like to live, the life that's worth living. And for this, then this was one of these eye-openers for Jeppe, where basically was smacked right in the face, and then this is a new chance.
The burnout was actually one of the most beautiful things that happened in my life, because I changed my life completely in the values, in the way I was together with my family, in the way I'm right here, right now, and the way I'm doing art, and the way I understand my own art. But of course, it was also the worst thing that could happen in my life, because I couldn't take care of my child for 10 seconds. That I was scared if I should take her. I could play with her, I made some drawings, but I couldn't take the responsibility for anything. So be careful, I would just say. Listen to your body. When it tells you something, then listen to it.